Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday and happy Black History Month. It is so good to see each of you. We are just giving it a moment or two for everyone to get settled into our virtual learning community. It is always so exciting for us to come to this hour to know that so many of you value the time that we spend in community learning with and from each other as part of the Intentional Conversations podcast. And we don't take for granted that you see this as a valuable resource. And so we are so grateful. Take a moment, if you would, to go to the chat and let us know where you are joining the conversation from today. It is always a treat for us to see the many different geographies that are represented across the US and even outside of the US on occasions. And if you are joining us by LinkedIn Live, we want to say hello to you as well. Throughout our show today, we do encourage you to use the comment section for those LinkedIn Live folks. We are watching that closely, bringing into our Zoom chat all of the sentiments, thoughts, and questions so that we all can be connected as one big community. And we're just so glad you're here. If you are part of our Zoom community, I want you to know that we love to see smiling faces. And so if you would like to turn your cameras on, then we welcome that. We also know that many times people are joining us, maybe just in an auditory capacity. Perhaps you're listening in while you're multitasking. That's totally fine. Whatever capacity in which you are here, we are grateful and we appreciate it. Let's make sure that we're using the chat and the comment section today to really extend that sense of community and get as proximate to each other as possible. If a resource comes to mind that you think would be of value to this greater community, then please share it into the chat, into the comments. Let us all know what sentiments and expressions are coming up for you. We want this to be very much a lively, engaged group with lots of interaction. I also want you to know that at NWC, we really do value disability inclusion. So we have enabled the closed caption feature for those of you that would find that of value. I want you also to be aware that as we go through today's conversation, so will be an opportunity for you all to share your questions, your comments, and even engage live if you so choose to, particularly those that are part of our Zoom community. And so I'll give you instructions for that a little bit later in the show. If you desire for this community to connect with you beyond this hour of time, then you have the amazing opportunity to do so by simply just sharing your LinkedIn information into the chat. And that lets us know that you're willing to connect. Once again, this is Intentional Conversations podcast. I am Dr. Nika White. My pronouns are she, her, and let the conversations begin. We're so glad you're here. Let the conversations begin, indeed, and that is precisely what we are about to do. For those of you who aren't aware, if you haven't been a part of our community this particular year, I have been sharing that this is our 5th year anniversary. Yay, 5. And we are so excited about that. And because this is our 5th year anniversary, we are celebrating in multiple ways all throughout the year. So in addition to bringing you a new episode every single Friday during this hour of time, we are also doing something special on a quarterly basis. And I will let you know about that momentarily. But we are 5 years old, and that's no small feat. There is a multitude of things that happen behind the scenes to bring this virtual production experience to each of you. And so I want to shout out the NWC team right now for all of their hard work and making sure that this happens seamlessly week after week. I also just mentioned that it is February, so you know what that means is Black History Month. And so as always here at NWC, we're going to lean completely into that, and not just this month, but all throughout the years in ways that make sense. And I am particularly committed to leaning into Black History Month this year because we are experiencing a lot, and we need to be able to navigate with a sense of pride, with a sense of the value that we bring to society, and with also acknowledging our history, because our history is American history. So yay to Black History Month for this particular year. If you're new to our community, you know that you may not know that I am an author of 3 books, and my latest book is Inclusion Uncomplicated. I'm saying latest; it's actually 2 years old this particular month, and we released the paperback version. Actually, I'm saying this month, but we're in February, so I was 2 in January, but we did also release in January the paperback version. So it is still available for those who do not have your copy yet. I encourage you to get it, write a review, do a book gathering with others that you're in a community with, and let's keep the conversation of inclusion going, because it is important. And in spite of what we're hearing and seeing right now, we need to continue to amplify the value of everyone being able to show up at their best, feel seen, valued, and heard, and have full opportunity for success. So Inclusion Uncomplicated, a transformative guide to simplify DEI, and that was in partnership with my publisher, Forbes Books. We like to share at NWC many different resources to help individuals as they are on their journey of increasing their knowledge around all things diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, belonging, accessibility, all the things, right? And intersecting that with leadership and business. So yours truly is a LinkedIn Learning instructor, and there are 4 courses that are out there and available for you all to strengthen your knowledge. And I invite you to take a look at what those opportunities are. And if you find that they would be of value to your learning journey, then take those courses and then also share them out with others. And you'll see a listing there on the screen. I'm super excited because we have a new program at NWC that we have launched this year, and it's called Boundless. It's a women's community of well-being, empowerment, and leadership. This is an opportunity for us to bring women together, particularly with the emphasis on supporting women of color. And through meaningful connections and conversations and empowerment opportunities through tools and leadership development content, we are creating a space where we can fully lean into all that we are very authentically, and to just be supported on our journey of trying to navigate the complexity of what we may be experiencing right now in all the different spaces and places where we show up. So I hope that you will stay tuned for some more information. We're going to be launching a community boundless opportunity relatively soon, but in the interim, stay tuned. We would love for you to be a part of that. More information is on the way, and we will also share a link into the chat. One of the other offerings we are doing this year is Storytelling Cultural Framework. Storytelling is not new to any of us. Storytelling and personal narratives finds its way into our conversations on a daily basis. What I am finding, though, is that the power of storytelling hasn't fully been realized within corporate spaces or organizational spaces from a workplace culture perspective. We want to help your organization to infuse storytelling into every aspect of operations. Storytelling connects us. It helps to bridge the difference of divide. It helps us to deepen our empathy and our compassion, to get proximate to those lived experiences of others that we may not ever encounter ourselves. So much value is built into the power of storytelling. And we would love to share more with you. We will place a link into the chat, into the comment section if you're on LinkedIn Live, for you to learn more. Now, I teased you in the beginning, and I said that as part of our 5th-year anniversary, we have a lot of ways in which we're celebrating. I'm so excited because we're doing a Intentional Conversations reunion episode every quarter, and the first one is coming up later this month on the 24th, where I have 4 amazing women that I am in close community with. They are my sisters. We are part of a brain trust group. We're supporting each other in so many different ways, and there's brilliance that's happening across their sphere of influence, and I want you to hear from them. So if you don't know these names, as you see them on the screen, Tara J. Frank, Menda Harsh, Ritu Bisan, Deepa Purushothaman, I want you to get to know them by not only looking them up, following them, but then also joining us on February 24th. We will drop the registration link into the chat. This is free, and it's happening during the evening. So it's outside of our normal Friday hour of time where we meet. And so I hope that you will make sure that you're marking your calendars accordingly, and that you will be able to join us. By way of letting you know what you have to look forward to, and so the upcoming weeks, we have Michael Pasalio, and he is going to be joining us on the 14th as we discuss web and software accessibility, usability to people with disabilities, and AI and accessibility. I think this is a really important conversation, and we want to make sure that we are continuing to expand the different dimensions of diversity that needs to find its way into these broad topics. So I'm really excited to welcome Michael on February the 14th. Following that, on the 21st, we have Dr. Adrienne Johnson Williams, who's going to be joining us. And in that conversation, we're going to touch on inspiration that launched Standpoint Consulting, which is her business, and her perspective on the large number of organizations that are eliminating or reducing their DEI initiatives and implementing organizational change. It's a really important conversation to have right now. And then rounding us out at the end of February, we have Sherry Dunn that's going to be joining us, another sister in this space that's doing amazing work. And so I cannot tell you enough about how on fire I am about the wonderful guest co-hosts that are going to be joining us this year. So I hope that you will also make sure that you're in the house for Intentional Conversations podcast. Now, it gives me great pleasure to provide a formal introduction of today's guest co-host. And how we do that is I will read this person's bio. We do that because it's important to me that you all know the accolades, the credentials, the experiences in which our guest co-hosts show up to the conversation with. And so today will be no different. I am so excited to welcome my friend, Katrina Jones. And Katrina believes the key to a healthy, profitable, and sustainable business is building and investing in an inclusive culture and workplace, one where all employees can thrive, collaborate effectively, and meaningfully contribute to the success of the business. Katrina is the founder and CEO of Advancing Equity Plus Inclusion, an HR and DEI consulting company that partners with companies and leaders who want to align their talent and diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies with business goals and cultivate more inclusive, healthy, and profitable organizations. Throughout her career, Katrina has led HR across the employee life cycle and helped organizations connect their programmatic efforts to comprehensive DEI strategies that accelerate progress in building diverse teams and cultures with high levels of psychological safety. She has more than 15 years of experience leading and managing DEI, HR, and talent functions at companies like AWS, Latham and Watkins, and Year Up. Most recently, she served on as the fractional chief people officer for The Class, a fitness and wellness company whose mission is to improve people's mental and physical well-being so that they can live their most fulfilling lives. And that's not all. Katrina earned her Bachelor of Arts in Ethnic Studies from the University of Texas at Austin and a Master's of Arts in Human Resource Management from the Catholic University of America. Katrina resides in Houston, Texas, with her lovely 8-year-old daughter, Wonder Kid, and lives to find joy in small moments. And just reading that out loud brought me so much joy. So I love that. So you know what to do if you've been a part of our community right now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, which means that is the time for you all to find those emojis, those accolades, and to let Katrina know how much we appreciate her being here with us today and that we're really looking forward to it. So find those words of affirmation, go to the chat, and I'm going to bring Katrina into the spotlight. And Katrina, one of the things that we do here at NWC, particularly as part of our podcast community, is we will invite our guest co-hosts to share with us in a way that aligns with our tradition, and that is to let us know something about yourself that we would not know from reading and hearing your bio, which we've just done, right? Yeah. And so I'm going to give you that moment to greet us, but I look forward to you sharing with us whatever kind of insight that will help us get a little bit of a deeper connection to who you are and how you're showing up today. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Nika. Thank you so much for having me. Before I share, I want to take a moment just to honor and celebrate you. 5 years is a huge milestone.
Thank you.
You say that and just, I know what it means and I know how hard that you've worked and you have an amazing team and you've done and continue to do some fantastic transformational work that is legacy defining. And so Black History Month, we must honor Black history, past, present, and the future. And that's you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate that.
So I will share a few things that you would not know about me and did not hear in my bio. Yes, I'm an HR and talent and diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner, and a business owner and a job seeker currently. And a few of the things that have made me successful in the work that I do is my superpowers. a few of which are I'm an empath. I connect easily and deeply with people, and the way that I connect with people allows them to feel seen, heard, and valued. And it is something I do not take lightly, because to be able to do that is it is an honor. I'm also strategic and a connector. And so where other people may not see, how one thing that is seemingly unrelated to this other thing, these are completely different ideas, concepts, whatever. It's easy for me to connect the dots between things. Um, I am also someone who is very comfortable and has gotten very comfortable over the last, I would say, 5, 6 years, really being vulnerable and telling my story, and telling
Mhm.
other stories in a way that gives people understanding and helps them to see the humanity in something that they may not have knowledge about or may be unfamiliar with, which is another, I think, honor to be able to do that and to be in spaces to do that. Uh, Two other quick things. Uh,
Yes.
I'm a beauty junkie. I wear, and when I wear red lipstick, like I'm wearing today, it is usually a way to celebrate my mom, who always wore red lipstick. She's no longer with us on this plane, but she always wore red lipstick. And for me, when I wear red lipstick, I feel like she is, walking with me, as she is every day. Um,
Mhm.
Lastly, I want to share something because we are living through really turbulent and challenging times. I want to share something that brings me joy, and that is watching my daughter, who is 8 and a half. She's eight and a half now. But her play with her friends and the way that they play and seeing this, you know, Black girl culture and, yes, the magic come alive between them. And, the music that they like, the things that they talk about. And it is really affirming for me in a deep way, spiritually, personally, in all the ways that you can think of. But I love seeing her play with her friends and the jokes and all the things. Last night we were talking about Valentine's Day and crushes, and she told me how she doesn't, believe in crushes, doesn't want to have a Valentine's Day because it's too much drama. And so I invite you, because we're all in this space and riding through these waves, I invite you to also share something in the chat that brings you joy or that has brought you.
Oh, Katrina, I'm smiling because I wish and I hope that maybe today is going to inspire all of us, especially during this hard time that many of us are navigating. I wish that it was commonplace for as we are introducing ourselves to someone, getting to know others, that it just organically finds its way into that conversation for us to share what brings us joy. So thank you for depositing that gift to us today, and I hope that we all are going to follow suit. And I am seeing some things being shared into the chat, and I love that for us, and I love that um, because right now things are hard, things are heavy, and so being able to be intentional about focusing on joy is really really incredibly important. So thank you. Um, and I will just quickly say that I think that one of the early experiences when you and I first connected was really around me, kind of through you a little bit, getting to know your daughter. And you shared something with me. And I remember I sent her a book that my friend wrote, and that was years ago. So I'm going to give her her point 0.5 because, yes, she's 8 and a half now. Eight
Yes,
and a half
yes.
now.
Don't forget the half. It's very
Don't forget
important.
that. That's really important. But every time that we connect, your daughter is always a part of the conversation. And so it's no surprise to me today that as you were sharing a little bit more about yourself, that your daughter was also brought to today's discussion. And I love that. I love that. Okay, so I know that you are an empath and it feels appropriate. You share it with us, what's bringing you joy today. And I'm glad that you're centering yourself on that point. But as an empath, I have to ask you just how are you doing today when you consider all that is being navigated? Because that feels important as a question to ask of all of those we're in community with. So, how are you doing today? How are you navigating?
I appreciate you asking that. Today is a better day than yesterday, and I'm in a space where I take it day by day, and I think we are all finding our way through this moment using different coping strategies and techniques, and trying not to be overwhelmed. I feel the overwhelm. Yesterday was a really hard day, and the day before was also a really hard day, and so what I know is each is a day, and the next day is another opportunity, and I do my best to do whatever I need for myself on those days. If it's
Yeah.
I need to go just be still and lay down, I need to maybe watch like half a season of Abbott Elementary, um, maybe catch up on some of my other shows. Like, I need to disconnect, or I just need to be present, which is
Yeah.
the revelation I've had recently. Is I think one of the ways that we cope is by disconnecting a bit, and you in that you do miss the opportunity to be present and to be with what's right in front of you, and maybe actually to disconnect from the heavy stuff. So being
Yeah.
present is really helpful. But today is a better day, and it's Friday, and yes.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that we all have to find, what works for us, what helps to self-soothe us while we're trying to, maintain a sense of presence, understanding even the difficulty and the complexity of all that's occurring. But I love that today we are centering joy. And that is also, as we relate this to Black History Month, what we have been accustomed to do is be able to hold both trauma and joy. And by the way, just really quickly, speaking of Black History Month, I am very intentionally today repping the International African American Museum, which is in Charleston, South Carolina. I am a new board member. And if you're looking for things to do this month, as you are trying to, of course, acknowledge and recognize and celebrate Black History Month, I do recommend the I Am Museum. Okay, so let's jump right in. I want to talk a little bit about your work and your experience. And based upon your experience, what is the most common? There's a lot of them, but let's talk about maybe the most common misconceptions that companies have about building an inclusive culture, and how can they overcome it to create meaningful change? I think this question is important just to preface it, because right now, what we're seeing is that the reason the words DEI are being weaponized is because people don't understand it. They don't really understand why it exists. And so, what are some other misconceptions you're seeing, and how are you helping organizations to gain better clarity?
Yeah, I think one of the most common misconceptions is that this is short-term work, that this is work that you can set goals around. And I think we have seen this, and it's part of the reason why we're in the moment that we're in right now, is that you can set some immediate goals, you can throw money at it, and then it will be fixed within a year's time or within 18 months. And for all my lovers of history out there, you know that it's taken us centuries and upon centuries to
Right.
the place that we are now. Setting some goals and prioritizing and aligning budget, and giving it a timeline of 12 months, it's not going to
Yeah.
happen. Right. And so, as much as it is about, yes, having a plan, about investing, it is about doing so for the long term. That is one of the biggest misconceptions. I think another misconception is that if you simply architect, and a lot of the work that I do is working with companies to, integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies with their HR strategies to improve talent outcomes. And yes, you absolutely should do those things because this is what helps to disrupt bias. It helps to um, uh, create and affect fair talent outcomes.
Yeah.
However, mechanisms, processes are not enough.
Right.
Is also about your values, about your culture. It is about how people do what they do, not just what they do. And that is a really common misconception that I think needs more sunlight is the behavioral aspects. And how does, when we talk about, having inclusive cultures where people feel seen, valued, and heard, they feel a sense of belonging, what does that actually look like day in and day out? Does it, from a process standpoint, this can mean making notes accessible to people, right? So that they can read a transcript or read a summary
Yeah.
and not have to rely on listening. As someone who is neurodiverse, I almost never want to listen. I do listen to podcasts, but I love a transcript. I love to be able to read, and it often helps me to make sure that I haven't missed anything. I watch TV. I watch everything with captions for that reason because
Mm.
I it ensures I won't miss anything. But this
Yeah.
is that's a process, but it's also your manager checking in with you to ask how you're doing. And no, really, how are you doing? To ask you about what you need. It's your manager giving you feedback. It is, let's say there's a team offsite, it is being thoughtful and intentional about making sure that there are activities for everyone, that people have the option to opt in or opt out, that people
Yeah.
have, for example, rather than running a program all day long and then shuttling people to dinner, it's giving people breaks and time and space to recharge, to go talk to loved ones, etc. And it's also being cognizant of people uh, having to take time away from their families, communities, and even the ability to do that, right? So it's a
Yeah.
yes, a process, but it's in all of these little things every day, and it is also in the connections um, that people make with each other.
Yeah, that is so well articulated. And what's coming up for me is the need to just amplify when you are doing this work, when organizations are really committed to doing this work. It's not just about what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And I think that was so resonance with me that I wanted to repeat it. And I think that when we're focused on the how, it allows us to be much more intentional, much more strategic, much more innovative and creative in our approach to solve for what we're trying to accomplish. And it, I think, positions us to have less propensity to fall into that camp of being criticized for being performative because we're checking a box, but really driving towards impact. And that is, at the end of the day, what we are attempting to do, not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but doing it because there are very explicit outcomes we are looking to obtain. And you just in this, that, spill that clip, you share so many practical examples of things that organizations can do. So I hope that for our audience here, many were taking notes. Um, I was at a conference this week and it was, consisting of a lot of CHROs, CDOs, people that are definitely connected in very significant ways to the work of DEI. And as you can imagine, in this climate, conversations of what's happening right now in this political climate surfaced into all of the presentations just about. And the main question that people were trying to address is DEI going away? And I want to just toss that to you. What do you say if you when you're asked? And I'm sure you have been because you have a lot of organizations that you support with this work. But is DEI going away? What do you say to that, Katrina?
The short answer is no. A lot of what you see in media, these are headlines, right? And their
Yeah,
headlines ultimately are meant to drive traffic. And what drives traffic is a line, a simple line that is provocative or that draws people to a conclusion and says, "Oh, this is being attacked, and this means X, Y, and Z." And what I know and what so many others know, it's in the details, right? So are companies about like reevaluating their strategies, their programs, initiatives? Absolutely. And in particular, those companies who, are federal contractors and do a lot of work with the
Yeah.
federal government, they have, they have to. There is news that just went out today about Accenture dropping their diversity targets.
Haven't seen that.
Yes, you can Google it.
Yeah, there's something new every day, every second, so it's hard to keep up, but I have not seen that. So yes, thank you for putting that on our radar.
Yes. And that is absolutely, on the surface, it seems like something to panic over, right? Accenture is a huge employer, one of the world's largest employers. And if they, the assumption is if they abandon, so will so many others. And from a practical, pragmatic standpoint, Accenture does a ton of business with the federal government. They literally have a federal practice, right?
Yeah,
So we have to adapt and to modify. And what I think we will see is that yes, companies will evaluate risk. They will change the language, which we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing roles and the work go from diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity and inclusion to employee experience and culture.
yeah,
Example.
yeah,
Okay with that? Like, yes,
yeah,
absolutely, evolve the language. Let's adapt the work so that people understand. And I think that's one positive aspect of this is that we are being very clear about what this work is. Because when we say equity, we mean everybody gets a fair shot, right? Yes,
yeah,
they're minimizing bias, and it is provocative in a way that stirs up a certain outrage and unjustified anger to think that equity only serves Black and Brown people. It only serves LGBTQ plus people. It only serves certain communities when it serves everyone. It serves
yeah,
that person who has a heavy Southern accent, who went to community college and went to a small public university that's not well known. It serves them as well, right?
yeah.
The point when we talk about inclusion, it's the things that we've talked about. It is feeling like, yes, you are a part of the team. You feel welcomed every day. You don't question necessarily, am I supposed to be here? Those things all matter, and they matter to employers. And this is the way that the work will continue to evolve. This will always matter to employers because you need good talent, you need excellent talent, you need skilled talent. People want to go where things are good.
People want to go where things are good. Absolutely. We have a lively chat going on, conversation. So I hope you all are paying attention there. I just want to comment on some of what you shared, and I completely concur. DEI will never go away. As long as we're going to have a society where people exist and warm blood is running through their bodies, we're going to need the essence, the spirit, the commitment of all that DEI entails. And so whether it is called that or whether the nomenclature changes and shifts, the work is still going to remain. And I think that's such an important point for us to amplify as we continue to navigate all that we are experiencing right now. I also love the recognition of oftentimes when this body of work, DEI, is connected to the values of an organization, it positions that organization to have greater ability to facilitate sustaining the work. Because at the end of the day, that's what the main goal is right now. How do we sustain the work? So whether we refer to it as conscious leadership, which I see actually one of my client contacts is on for today, Takia, that's actually how they refer to it at Verity, the brand that she represents, or whether we just talk about it as culture and engagement, whatever it is, the work is the work. The other thing that I will just share from the conference I attended this week to round out this conversation is that there were a couple recurring themes that many of the leaders and the practitioners brought to the forefront for us as DEI advocates, champions, and practitioners to think about as we are weathering the storm of this very hard process and climate. And that is, we need to make sure that we are being very intentional to engage white men in this conversation right now. And I believe that if we don't, we're going to find that in order to sustain this work is going to become harder. And what was echoed is that white men do not see themselves as part of this. And so when you talked about, Katrina, how the broad definition of diversity, these are my words, not yours, we need to get outside of just the main aspects of like race and gender. It's so much broader. We need for everyone to understand how this work benefits us all, how it belongs to all of us. And right now, the white men are the ones who are really loud about feeling as though there's no value to DEI. The other thing that came up is we need to also educate on how broad dimensions of diversity are, right? And that goes back to what I just said. We are still continuing to find that a lot of people gravitate to the optics only. And I think that's hurting us. We need for everybody to understand all the different dimensions and ways that this work, supports so many different individuals. And while doing that, yes, we're going to solve for the margins. I will always stand on business about that. We have to solve for the margins. We have to. And then the last thing is, organizations right now need to not be fearful, need to not have these knee-jerk reactions, but they certainly need to be pulling together all of the appropriate stakeholders across compliance, legal, HR, all the things, right? For all of those individuals to align on and bring to the conversations, what are the vulnerabilities? What are the risks? And now how do we collectively decide how we're going to move forward? Without that, I think it's going to delay a process of really having strong strategies that can help sustain the work. And quite honestly, we need all those voices at the table. So that is some of the things that I am seeing and hearing that were also echoed into at the conference that I attended. I want to talk about no, go ahead. You want to jump in. So I want you to.
I think white men and bringing them along, that's important, and it's beyond white men, right? Because we
Oh,
know
yeah.
that that so many others across dimensions are also you know wanting to align themselves in such a way, right, with power, etc. And so yeah, we need to speak to those people, speaking of on the margins, right, who don't believe, and don't believe in part because they lack understanding. But if
Yeah.
we are in a space and we say, hey, don't you want a fair shot at a promotion? Well, yeah, yes, I do. Yes, so do I. And we also have to recognize that there are biases that exist and that show
Right.
up along the way that inhibit that fairness. I think the other aspect, and you mentioned working with partners, and that's always
Yeah.
part of the work. And one of the aspects that I've been in conversation with folks about is that um, you know D&I practitioners, leaders, have knowledge, they have expertise. There's an assumption that HR and talent partners, and probably legal as well, that they have some of that, they share some of that expertise. And that's not the case. It's fundamental.
Yeah.
And I think that is also another area when we talk about ways in which the work has been stalled or doesn't get the traction. It's because the partners that we're working with fundamentally don't understand. And they don't understand,
Absolutely.
don't necessarily believe.
Yes, that's so true. And I'll give you an example. Just this week, I was speaking with the client and just helping, again, there's been an influx of calls of late with folks, connecting with their key trusted resources in this space to really help them understand what they need to be thinking about and all the considerations. And this one particular client had mentioned that they have legal working on it. And so I started to ask questions and I said, so who else is in the room with legal while they're working on it? Because yes, legal is important. We need to understand from a compliance and make sure that we understand all of the risk. But what I've come to understand is that if you put legal in a room to solve for it solely, they're going to wear the hat of what do we need to just get rid of in order to make sure that we are protected. And that is not the only lens that needs to be brought into the consideration set, and so I am a big fan of, we need thought partnership across all key stakeholders to make sure that we are navigating this correctly. The other thing that I'm seeing too, and I want to get your thoughts on this, why do you believe, Katrina, that some organizations are feeling compelled to be vocal in public about their decision, either to pull back in some ways or to remain committed in all ways that they were prior to the new administration coming into office, versus those who are sitting back and saying, we value this work. We know that we're going to have to shift and change and modify to sustain the work, but we're going to do it under the radar so that we aren't driving too much attention to us. What are your thoughts on that?
Different strategies, different approaches, right?
Yeah.
And I see where absolutely one company, especially anyone who's had to deal with a shareholder proposal to investigate the work, right? Where they, in an attempt to put some, I'll say, meat out there,
Yep.
right? To appease that group, will say, yes, here's what we've done. And so and it sounds like, oh, they've stepped back, like Amazon is a famous,
Yeah.
oh, they've stepped back from their commitments. And again, Amazon also has a huge federal contracts and things like that. And so, yes, they're going to evaluate for that risk, but are they just, you know, eliminating everything? Absolutely not. And so some companies, and this is a strategic communications approach, right? It's a strategic approach from a communications and PR in some aspect, but they will go out there and they might put a statement out. They might say something perhaps that's in response to a shareholder proposal. Also, even if they're not intentionally putting out statements, if it's let's say part of a disclosure or it's part of a board meeting, media picks that up, and yes, it is a story that gets tons of traction. So yes,
Yes.
let's get those clicks. And then there are folks who say, you know what, we are going to do what we need to do. We're seeing everything that's playing out. We will, you know, go through a reassessment, reevaluation. We will evolve and adjust as we need to, and we will keep moving forward. And companies will do whatever is necessary for them. And some companies, frankly, cannot help making headlines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And some are intentionally flying below the radar because they see that as a strategy to prevent them or minimize the risk of them being targeted, right? And so something that I think is important for all of us to think about is the media, the headlines, they're fast and furious right now. And I have noticed that there tends to be greater gravitation towards stories of brands pulling away from the work than those who are digging deeper into and doubling down on the work. And even the stories that are communicating those who are reducing the work or pulling away from the work, I think we have to do our own research to dig a little bit further into that, because what I'm finding is that it's not so much of pulling away, it is reimagining, it is modifying. And I'm not saying that's the case across the board, but I am just acknowledging the need for each of us to, as we're seeing a lot of these media stories, to do some further digging and not just assume that everything that's being communicated is 100% accurate. Katrina.
Oh, Dr. Nika, we are here. Okay, because we are talking about the companies pulling away. We're talking about Facebook and Amazon and all
Yeah.
the. We're not talking about JP Morgan Chase. We're not talking about Jamie Dimon saying, yeah, we've been,
Yeah.
we're going to keep doing this work. And what? Right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
getting nearly as much traction, as much attention. And again, we tend to focus on this negative. It stirs outrage. It gives us a boost of some sort because it engages, you know, our cortisol and all these things. And so
Yes.
it's rewarding in some way to continue being outraged and continue feeding that for ourselves, and I think for our collective. And it also exhausts us when we see headline after headline. It can feel like defeat,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And the correction, because what I have observed is that after these big headlines, there's always a correction. There's always another article that comes out and says, well, actually, HR Brew published an article after the stuff came out about Amazon, and it was a correction,
Mhm.
right? Um,
Yeah.
but that correction is never as loud as the bang of misinformation.
It's not. It's not. It's not. And that's disturbing, which is why again I say we're gonna have to make sure we're not just, gravitating towards the news and then accepting it at full value. Let's make sure that we are sensitizing ourselves to kind of dig a little bit deeper. Um, I am hearing that well, before I actually go here, I do want to remind you all, because I'm noticing the time. We're coming up on, 15 minutes remaining, and I do want to give this audience an opportunity to engage in our conversation today. So if you're part of our Zoom community and you would like to present a question, contribute with a comment, then I invite you to use the raise hand feature. That lets me know that I can invite you to unmute yourself. And if your camera's on, I'll even add you to the spotlight. If you're on LinkedIn Live and that's how you're getting this episode, then go to the comment section, place your questions there. And as time permits, we will get to as many of those questions and comments as we can. So while you're percolating on that, I'm going to go to my next question. And I am hearing and I am seeing that there are a number of people who are of the camp and of the persuasion that there's no value to DEI. So they are really glad about all the executive orders and all of the changes and all the things that's occurring that's impacting a lot of marginalized communities. And what I'm seeing is that because of the current administration, they are becoming even more emboldened in how they're showing up to the world. And there's a lot of anxiety around safety, right? That people are experiencing right now. And so, are you seeing the same thing? And how are you just communicating to those who you could be in community with around just being thoughtful and cautious from just a safety perspective right now?
That is very, very real. And we have a prime example of that this week with that website that went up of, and I like my heart literally aches as I'm saying this.
Yeah.
There is a conservative group who put up a website of
Yes.
diversity people. So people
Yes.
are, doing the work, quote unquote, fueling the work. And oh man, I'm literally feeling it because I feel so deeply for those people, for their family, right? I've worked in some very public roles and have been fortunate to. Um, there was one in particular where I think a few weeks after I'd started, and this is prior to a major event for the company, there was a consultant who came in who gave a class and some instructions on how to protect yourself uh, externally from your
Oh,
social media and things like that. And it's because people will do things like, dox someone and put their address out there and things like that. And you all know I'm a mama and also obviously very fierce mama bear. No one should have to, simply because of what they do for like, no one should have to fear for their safety or their family safety. And I know that people right now are, being very careful, I will say, and just very mindful about community and connecting and being sure that those connections are safe. So lots of private groups and moving to appropriate services that allow for that. Um, you know, I think in the past people have welcomed and try invited as many people in as possible, and now people are, I think, just being again more mindful about that.
I'm mindful. Yeah.
Because safety is priority, and so
Right.
you do what you need to do for safety. And if that's one thing, I will say this, that Black folks know is we understand safety, we understand
100%.
and how do we wrap our arms around a community and keep each other safe in the absence of anyone else stepping in to keep us safe. So we will do that. Things will be private, things will um, uh, remain kind of less in the public sphere, which is probably the right move at the moment. And safety is paramount.
Yeah. Absolute safety is paramount. This is real talk. So vulnerable moment for me. I usually never shy away from any type of print or broadcast media opportunity to share my voice around this work that I care deeply about. And I have been a lot more cautious. I have turned down some opportunities of late from a broadcast perspective because of the understanding that there is a target list out there right now that you just described. And we're talking about target lists where they're including DEI practitioners and leaders' personal information. And the same way that they had a target list of corporations and large brands, now there's individuals that are being listed. And so the safety aspect is we're not saying this to create and instill fear in anyone, but I think that it is a reality for us to be aware of as we continue to do what we can as we're trying to make sure that DEI can be sustained. And that was hard for me, Katrina. It really was. I remember talking to my daughter about one of the opportunities. She said, Mom, I think you should. And like you, I'm a very protective mom. And my daughter, she's not 8.5, she's an adult. She's in her 20s. And
Yeah.
she also, cares deeply about this work. And she's, kind of in the space with me. And she said, Mom, you absolutely have to. At the end of the day, I said no to the opportunity because I knew the audience. And it was because I was thinking of her. I was thinking of my son. I was thinking of my family. And so those are real decisions that we're contemplating today that I honestly never saw myself having to be at that crossroads.
It's one of there are things that I think are shameful and that we will look back on hopefully at some point and say, man, I can't believe. And that's one of, I think, the shameful aspects is you're removing opportunities from people. You're taking food out
Yeah.
of literally taking food out of people's mouths, out of their families' mouths, right? When you're threatening their safety and people having to make those kind of decisions and weigh those choices to say, yeah, I'd love to do this, right? In any other space and time and place, this would be great. I'd move forward. We would move forward. And I'm not going to do that now. And I think
Right.
it's a good call for us to, for to work with experts, to have those kinds of sessions with experts to say, hey, this is how you protect yourself. This is what you
Yes, absolutely.
to take down your information, to get your information scrubbed from white pages, from these places, etc. Here's how you can protect yourself.
Yeah. No, real talk. I remember for, days after that decision. And by the way, to your point, I did call on my publicist, I called on my attorney. I was asking questions. I wanted to understand. And the part of those conversations, that thought partnership is what led me to decline it. That one and another one. But I have to say, in those moments afterwards, those couple days, even though I felt like I had really good counsel, there was a part of me, and I'm speaking very vulnerably to this community, but there was a part of me that felt like, did I cower? Am I now operating from a place of fear? Um, and so I had to get comfortable with I am being discerning
Yeah.
out of reasons of safety. And then so just to know that this week that list came out, it gives me even more confidence in that decision that was made. And so if anyone is kind of contemplating, similarly to what I just shared, I want you to know that everyone is within their right to assess what's best for themselves and to make that call and to stand on business about it, because the emotional capacity that comes with doing this work and being able to continue to do this work can only be fully assessed by the individual that's going through it, and we all process differently. Some people are very much out there in the trenches and at the forefront, and I appreciate those individuals, right? So I don't take away anything from those who are, saying yes to all these opportunities, because we need those folks. But I also don't want anyone who, like me, may be second guessing their decisions if you have discerned that I need to now tread lightly on this particular situation. So anyway, I wanted to express that.
Talk about that for a second because that is it's one of the things I think we can extend more forgiveness to folks.
Yes,
And I'll say forgiveness is not the right word. It's grace.
it's
Let's
grace.
more grace to folks because you don't know we don't know anyone's individual situation, right? And so I might, and I've seen this a lot over the last few years, right? Where people are expecting people in certain roles, in certain,
Yes,
why isn't this person speaking up? Why aren't they more vocal? Why is their message more
Yes.
diplomatic or softer, etc. Um, I know, for many Black folks in, corporate roles, right? You may be first in your family, or first or even second, right? To have one of those good jobs, and you're taking care of your family. You might also be taking care of other part members of your family, etc. You might be the one who when there's a funeral, is expected to contribute a significant
Mhm.
amount. Those are dynamics that people don't understand. And so, yeah, there is grace for folks who are just trying to, financially build and be able to take care, yes, of their families, to contribute to their communities, to contribute to extended families. And it is a calculated decision. And it's not one that I imagine people make lightly, but it's one,
Yes.
it is a real life, has real life effects. And so people have to do what they have to do. And you can always expect more, you can want more from people, and you don't know their individual situation. And so I extend grace to folks, because you don't
Yeah.
know what their lives are like, and also what commitments they have and what they might be beholden to. Sometimes people cannot speak out because they have a partnership, or because they're working with a certain company who just doesn't allow that.
Yeah.
The recent podcast you had with Zach Nunn, he spoke about that, right?
Yeah.
People on, and there's a list of things they can't talk about, that is real.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't know
And
what we don't know. So let's kind of refrain from making assumptions, because and it's so nuanced. And even for the practitioners in this space, you're right. Many of us are looked at as individuals that always need to bring voice to everything that's happening. Well, first and foremost, there's way too much happening every single day, every single second, that it's hard to keep up. But it begs the question: are they paying attention? Are they aware? And I can, agree that it may seem like, if we're quiet in moments, we're not paying attention, but we're also human. We're also processing ourselves. We're also navigating ourselves. We're also trying to protect our peace and, maintain some mental strength so that we can be there for our clients and be there for our families. I mean, it's all of these nuanced things that go into, just being able to show up the way that we do to continue to help move this work forward. And so, yes, please extend all of us grace, and extend yourself grace. Again, if you find yourself kind of, in these situations where you're contemplating some really hard decisions. Well,
Dr.
I did not see any hands raised. I do want to acknowledge that. So I'm not like, skipping the portion of giving our audience an opportunity. I'm assuming that our free flowing conversation is kind of resonating with our community. And we've been totally off script, by the way.
I know. But I hoped, and I kind of knew that was going to happen. And also knew that that was going to be the best conversation ever.
Yes.
Complete.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Think
yes,
about
100%, 100%. I'll have to invite you back so that we can get into maybe some of the other questions that we had, designated for today's talk. But I'm so grateful. I think that, the insight that you've provided today has been very centering and grounding. And I am walking away with this whole inspiration of bringing joy and acknowledging our joy and being grateful for that and letting that kind of fill our cups. We have about 3 minutes left, and because we went off script the entire time, I want you to be able to share with our community, what are you having a lot of passion and energy for today, maybe that we did not get a chance to socialize around, and maybe anything else that you feel like would be of use and value to this community.
But I want to go back to what we were talking about a bit, just around the roles that we play. That
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
people are on the front lines. They're going to be people protesting literally in the streets. There are going to be people who are at the courthouse. There are going to be people in boardrooms and in those, lofty places, etc. And everybody has a role to play. And sometimes that may shift from one place or to the next. I always ask myself, like, am I the best person to speak about this? And do I have a
Yeah.
perspective that's really necessary right now? And is there work that I can do in other places? And you might not see it, right? But it will have an impact. And that's what matters ultimately. And so that's the grace that we're talking about is people have different roles to play. They have, and not everybody is at the courthouse. Not everybody is protesting for all of the different reasons, right? And so understanding that people have different roles. Some people's role is to rest. But like, let's be clear. Let's be clear about that, because we know that people burn out very quickly
Yes.
and hard in movements, and we've seen so many people be affected physically and also lose their lives. So I'd rather have you rest and live to fight another day in whatever way that you fight, than burn yourself out. So
That is definitely a great note to end on today. So much love and support is being shared into the chat. So I hope that you'll take a moment, Katrina, to soak all of that up. We're grateful for you, for your voice, for your leadership, for being an empath and caring about society, because hopefully that is being contagious and others are kind of gravitating to it. Again, it's Black History Month. And so I encourage you, think about the International African American Museum or find ways to, again, lean into understanding the importance of Black history to American history. And I just appreciate you all being a part of our community. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. And hopefully we'll see you back next week, next Friday, for another episode of Intentional Conversations. Be well. Thank you.